Welcome to the Cosmic Busker. My name is Bobby Cody. Alright, I want to take you along a fascinating journey of discovery that I had. One young gentleman, Uberboyo is his YouTube channel. He has a advertisement in which he likens life to almost like a video game if you approach it in the right way, and that's what I'm going to show you. It's almost like I'm in a video game and I'm skipping along and picking up all these treasures along the way, and I want to show you, and these are informational treasures that help to shed light upon the goal of the video game, you might say. It's quite fascinating, so I want to take you along this little journey that I discovered. It's quite interesting. Now, it all started, I believe it was Sunday. Kings and Generals, it's a YouTube channel. It's a history YouTube channel, and they do great standard versions of history, and everything looks great, and you know, great graphics and such like that. And if you're looking for the standard model of history and a little bit of understanding on that, it's a great YouTube channel to follow. But I you know, after what happened, and I'm going to show you why, I think that they're intentionally deceptive, at least in this one regard, and I'm going to show you why. On Sunday, they had a video on Genghis Khan. I was like, oh, great. I'm going to see what they have to say, because I've done videos on Genghis Khan and in my Tartary series, as this is an example of my Tartary video series. So let me take a look. And right in the beginning, they throw up a picture of Genghis Khan. I'll show you that picture. That's not what Genghis Khan looked like. So I can tell right away he's going to be deceptive or incorrect in this video. And sure enough, that's my perception of it. I think he's being intentionally deceptive, to be quite honest, because he claims that this is my most scientific video I've ever done, and it's not. It's his most deceptive video he's ever done. I don't think he can honestly describe his video as scientific. It's deceptive. Now I'm going to show you he showed you his version of Genghis Khan. Now I'm going to show you the version of Genghis Khan that I see. Okay, this is a much more Caucasian-looking version of Genghis Khan, and in particular, you can tell it's Caucasian because it has a full beard as well. Now, I did a video in which I showed this, and I describe it, and I say this is the version of Genghis Khan that I see in my mind's eye. You know, I kind of like meditate on this and try to imagine what Genghis Khan looked like, and I use a combination of spiritual meditation and just trying to really focus on the truth and research. And this version of Genghis Khan is the one I came up with. I found it online, no question about it. I had no idea where it came from. I just saw it and I'm like, that's what Genghis Khan looked like. And so I just took this random picture that I found, depiction of him. I had no idea where it came from. So that's the Genghis Khan. And now I'm going to take you on a little journey of synchronicity now, and how it led to that being the truth. Watch, it's quite fascinating. So I thought I got to do a video to respond to all this, and whatever. So then Brien Foerster. Brien Foerster is a researcher. He's based down in Peru, but he does research on elongated skulls. And he's based in Peru, in particular Parakas, Peru, because that's where a vast majority of elongated skulls have survived through time. And he's seen all these elongated skulls in Peru, but it's not only in Peru. They've been found elsewhere in the world, and we'll get into where else in a moment. But, so this particular video I'm watching, I'm like, let me watch this. And I had a strange feeling. I said to myself, as I'm watching his video, and I'm thinking about Genghis Khan, or Chinggis Khan is another way to pronounce it, Genghis or Chinggis. I prefer Genghis, although it's not the proper. Everybody tells me it's Chinggis, but I'm so used to Genghis, I'm going to continue calling it Genghis. So as I'm watching this video, I'm thinking like, I got to do a video in some way where Genghis Khan, I relate him to the elongated skulls, because I'm starting to have this funny feeling that Genghis Khan is somehow either had an elongated skull or is descended from elongated skulls. I just make this connection for some reason, and particularly because in the previous videos that I've done, Genghis Khan, I made a determination he had red hair and blue or green eyes, and that's what the evidence proves based on my extensive research. So I'm thinking about, as I'm watching Brien Foerster's video for about 40 minutes into this video, I'm thinking the whole time, I gotta do this video about Genghis Khan in reference to elongated skulls. But I didn't know exactly how I was gonna do it, how it's gonna go. And then this happened. I'll cut to the video, wait till you see it. It blew my mind. Watch, here's the video.
And even their god, who was called Khan, is depicted as having red hair.
Boom, I was like, whoa. Oh my God. Their god was Khan in Peru. So these Peruvians who are ruled by elongated skull peoples with red hair, their god was Khan. Whoa. I was like, the whole time I'd been thinking about doing this video associating Genghis Khan with these elongated skulls, and then boom, he says that their god was Khan. I'm like, whoa. Just blew my mind at that point. So I'm like, this is fascinating. It's synchronicity and confirmation, historical confirmation. So at that point, it's a few hours later, and I still haven't done the video. I was going to do the video the next day. I didn't do the video the next day because I got all tied up with a whole bunch of other stuff. So then I'm watching. I don't normally watch a lot of TV. It's not something I do. But I saw Star Trek. New version of Star Trek was on that I hadn't watched. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch this. It's called Into the Darkness. So I'm watching it, and it turns out the protagonist to Captain Kirk is Khan. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, wow, all right. And just as a quick aside, as I'm watching it, I see the character of Uhura. And I had saw one of the other Star Treks as well, and I'd seen her in that previous movie as well. So I'm just like, I'm going to do research on her real quick just to see about her. So I look it up. Her name is Zoe Saldana, and I look and see she's born in New Jersey. I'm in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey, live in New Jersey, and I'm currently in New Jersey right now. This hotel I'm in New Jersey. Just as a side that I was kind of like, oh, wow. That kind of hit me again as a little bit of synchronicity. So then a few hours later, one of the channels that I normally go to, it's called New Thinking Aloud. They have a new video up. The video? Shamanism in Mongolia. I'm like, whoa, this is getting really weird now. It's like just all these little synchronistic hints. So I'm like, okay, let me watch this video. I got the feeling that this is going to take me on another little journey here. So I watched the video. Gail Haysen is her name. She's talking about her experiences with shamanism in Mongolia and her interactions in Mongolia. And she talks about going to Ulaanbaatar, I believe is the name of the city in Mongolia. It's one of the central cities. I believe it's also the capital. And she talks about the largest horse statue in the world and visiting it and going inside it, and it's this. Boom. It's Genghis Khan on his horse. And guess what that is? I'm going to give you the front view. It's that depiction of Genghis Khan that I didn't know where it came from. Turns out, the Mongolians themselves created it. They created their own depiction of Genghis Khan, and it turns out my little spiritual meditation on what Genghis Khan looked like, and I just instinctively knew that this is what Genghis Khan looked like. Yeah, and it's what the Mongolians themselves say he looks like. So rather than this version that Kings of General deceptively says he looks like, no, I'm right all along. He's the more Caucasian version of Genghis Khan, and the Mongolians themselves agree and created the largest horse statue in the world of Genghis Khan astride his horse. Okay? So it was quite the fascinating journey here. So at that point, I'm like, all right, I got to do this video. So now I'm going to come back. I want to show a little bit more about that Brien Foerster video. I want you to see exactly what he states with regard to the elongated skulls and the red hair. Okay, we'll jump to that video and then we'll come back.
And even their god, who was called Khan, is depicted as having red hair. And in the ancient cemeteries, many different examples of the genetic red hair can be found to this day, and in some cases, blonde hair. Once again, through time, through oxidation, etc., black hair cannot become red or blonde. So this is another genetic distinction.
All right. So in Peru, now these elongated skulls, I should state, it's not recent. These elongated skulls in Peru are from 3,000 to 2,000 years ago. That's like 2,000 years before Europeans ever came to South America. All the native Indians of South America have black hair. So to find these elongated skulls with blonde and red hair is very, very, very interesting, and it doesn't fit with the normal pattern of history that we have. So 3,000 to 2,000 year old elongated skulls in Peru among the black-haired natives. All right, red hair and blonde hair. How did they get there? We're going to talk about that. First, I want to show you a couple books that Brien Foerster has written about this. If you want to get further into it, I'm going to plug a couple of his books. One here is called Beyond the Black Sea, The Mysterious Parakas of Peru. Parakas of Peru are where the elongated skulls are that he focuses on, the red-haired and blonde-haired ones from 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. So that's what this book is going to cover. But it also talks about Beyond the Black Sea, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. Another book he has, Akhenaten, Heretic Pharaoh. That heretic pharaoh of Egypt, again, had an elongated skull. We'll get into that in a moment. I just want to talk about, I'm going to throw up here a screenshot of blood typing of the elongated skulls in Parakas that he talks about. And as you can say, it says here, when done so, as in this case, we discover we are presented with a complex profile when it comes to Peruvian mummies. Combining both tests, their overall results produce conflicting interpretations. The following are the blood group results uncovered by an early ABO study. Okay, the province of Pisco, and that's in Parakas, says that these mummies have 28% A, 6% B. AB is, I think that's 16%, and O is 53%. The type O of 53% in these Parakas mummies, the elongated skull mummies, is in line with European frequencies, just like they were, as if they were from Europe. In fact, it is consistent with the global population today. The type A finding of 28% is a bit low, but otherwise fairly consistent with Europe, but the rest of the world as well. Now, why this is interesting is because the type O is what the Indians are. The Indians are only type O, the Peruvian Indians. But these elongated skulls are A, B, and O. Okay? Suggesting that they're from Europe. In fact, what Brien Foerster finds, he also did DNA typing, not just blood grouping of them, but DNA typing of them. And I don't want to get into the different haplogroup specifics right now. I'm trying to stay away from too much detail. But essentially, the haplogroups of these elongated skulls are all located in the Black Sea and Caucasus area. So Brien Foerster's hypothesis is that they came about 3,000 years ago, about 1000 BC. They left the Caucasus Black Sea area and sailed to Peru. They came into Peru, these elongated skull beings, and they settled among the black-haired natives, and they essentially ruled the black-haired natives due to their technology that they were able to provide for the black-haired natives. So very interesting. So I'm going to throw up a map right here, right now. This is a map of Eurasia. I've circled where the Black Sea is, so you can get a general sense of where the Black Sea is. You can see it's in Europe. It's the southeastern portion of Europe, essentially. And off to the right, you can see I also did an arrow, just so you can get a sense of where Mongolia is as well, in reference to Genghis Khan. And you can see that from a global scale, it's about 1,000, it's probably about 1,000 miles, maybe 2,000 miles away from each other, Mongolia and the Black Sea. But on a global sense, that's fairly close. I just wanted to give you a sense of where this is. I'm going to show up a map here too of the Black Sea, and as you can see in one of the peninsula, sticking down from the top of the Black Sea there is Crimea, and that's important. We're going to talk about that in a moment. I'm going to show right here, right now. I just want to show a mummy of a baby that was found in Parakas. Mummy has red hair. It can be seen in this particular mummy. This one is another mummy. This is a full-grown mummy, elongated skull mummy, and it still has its red hair. You can see the red hair on top. It's dark red hair that is not found in the native population of South America. But again, this is 3,000-year-old skull, elongated skull, found in Peru with red hair, okay? Here's another one. This one, again, I believe, if I remember correctly, this one was 6,000 to 8,000 years old and it wasn't found in Peru, if I remember correctly. But I just wanted to give an example of, again, an elongated skull with red hair. We're starting to see a pattern here. Elongated skulls with red hair. And again, in my previous video that I've done about Genghis Khan, I made the determination that Genghis Khan as well had red hair. So that's why I was making this connection with elongated skulls and Genghis Khan, and why I think that so much about Genghis Khan has been deliberately falsified via history to the public. Okay. Here I want to show a collection of these elongated skulls, just so you can take a look at those eye sockets. Look at those eye sockets. Those aren't Homo sapiens, and we can make that determination not only by the size of the skulls, but the size of the eye sockets as well. They're much larger than human eye sockets or Homo sapiens eye sockets. I think they're a type of human, but they're not Homo sapiens. And it appears that they were also able to interbreed with humans, because we see with I shouldn't say with humans, with Homo sapiens. They were a type of human. They weren't Homo sapiens, but they were able to breed with us, it appears to see. And we've seen that before. You know, I've done videos about this in the past. We've found a new type of human called a Denisovan. I did a video called, it's about, were the Denisovans the giants of the Bible? I'll throw a link up to it right now if I remember to do so. But we've done DNA on these Denisovans, and we found that, oh, well, this one's actually half Denisovan, has Neanderthal. And we've also made the determination that actually humans are a hybrid species. Africans, okay, black people in Africa, we've made the determination that they have some, they're hybrids, they have some ancestral hybridization that we haven't been able to make a determination what it is. Many people believe it may be Homo erectus is one of the speculations on it. Europeans are hybrids of Neanderthals. We have about, I believe it's about 3, 4, 5% Neanderthal genes. Asians, the typical Mongoloid Asians, have been shown to have Neanderthal and Denisovan blood. So what I'm trying to say is that all these different types of humans, even though they're not the same, they're not Homo sapiens, they do have the capacity to interbreed. And it appears that these elongated skull humans, we don't have a name for them yet, proper name, a scientific name for them, it appears that they are able to interbreed as well with humans. Now, why we don't have a name for them, like, you know, Homo sapiens, Homo Neanderthal, Homo Denisovan, Homo erectus, why don't we have a Homo name for these elongated skulls? Because science refuses to even look. Not even gonna take a look. And that's where I also kind of started to say, all right, they're not going to even bother looking at elongated skulls, and they're deceiving us about Genghis Khan. Suggests to me again that Genghis Khan probably had an elongated skull, especially given the fact that we already made the determination that he had red hair, just like these elongated skulls had red hair. Okay? So here again, I just want to throw up another couple examples of the elongated skulls. You can see that cranial capacity, it's almost twice the size of Homo sapiens. There's no question, all over the world, humans did what's called cranial deformation. They would take babies and they would put wooden planks on the baby's forehead and the back of their head to make their head grow out and make these cone head type of humans. There's no question about it. But they were doing that in emulation or copying these cone heads, okay? Not all of the skulls that we find like this are cranial deformation. These, because with cranial deformation, people that do that intentionally to try, you can't increase the size of the skull and how much volume is inside the skull. You can change the shape. You can't change the volume of how much the skull can help. These are twice as big, almost twice as big as human skulls. That cannot be cranial deformation. That's a different complete species. Okay. So Let's see what else we got here. Here I just want to give you an example and show you the difference in the skulls and the skull size. It's very, very patently obvious when you take a look at this. It can't be cranial deformation. You can see the difference in the size of the skull and the shape of the skull. Okay. So give you the opportunity to take a look at that for a moment. Now, it wasn't only, as I stated, it wasn't only adults that they found. They found babies as well. In particular, here's one example of a small child that they found. And what you can see with the small child is that the skull is almost the same size as the body in the baby. Okay? And you also see the huge eyes. The eye sockets are just huge. Again, it looks like about twice the size of Homo sapiens eye sockets. And you also see teeth. Babies at this age, Homo sapiens, don't have teeth. These do. And in fact, what Brien Foerster found is that even fetuses had teeth. So they didn't grow teeth, they already had teeth, these elongated skull beings. He also talks about the sutures in the skull are completely different. I'm not going to talk too much about that. You can watch Brien Foerster's video. I'm going to post it down below so you can watch that in complete for yourself and get more information in those particulars. But here's another picture of the baby, and in particular, what this also has is one less rib. So among all the differences between the skull volume and the size of the eye sockets, also had one less rib. So there's all kinds of physiological differences that prove this is not Homo sapiens. It's not cranial deformation, as so many people like to argue. This is a different species. And I don't think that Genghis Khan was a full-blown example of these elongated skull people. I think he was descended from them. He was a mix of human and elongated skull, and he had some of the characteristics, is what I'm suggesting. Because again, these particular elongated skulls in Peru were 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Genghis Khan ruled, it would have been around 1200s. That would have been over 800 years ago. So he's, over 1,000 years after these skull people were massacred in Peru, and they were massacred, as again Brien Foerster talks about. So here we have, in these two pictures I'm going to show up here right now are elongated skulls found in Crimea, and that was the Black Sea area that I was told you about. Brien Foerster again makes his hypothesis that something happened in Crimea and they had to get out of there, and they left Crimea and they went to Peru. But again, you find these elongated skulls in Crimea as well. And not only in Crimea. I'm going to show you a couple pictures right now. This is Akhenaten's daughter. Okay, Akhenaten was a pharaoh in Egypt. If I remember correctly, I'm going to put the date for Akhenaten about 1300 BC, which would make him about 2,300 years ago. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I may be off by some hundreds of years, but I'm in the ballpark. So he would have been just before these Crimean elongated skulls fled the Black Sea area and went to Peru. He would have been a few hundred years before that. But this is his daughter. And as you can see, she's depicted with an elongated skull as well. Here's another one of his daughters, and again, she's depicted as having an elongated skull, suggesting that the line of pharaohs and Akhenaten were of these elongated skull beings. It appears that wherever we look, we're starting to see, in Peru they were rulers, okay? They were kind of god kings or whatever. We see that in Egypt as well. We look closely 3,000 years ago, we would find that in Crimea as well. So what we see is these as leaders, god kings and god emperors, what have you. And again, which is what Genghis Khan was. Okay? So now I've told how it's likely that they hybridized with humans and that they mated with humans. I just want to show up an example of this. Brien Foerster points to this as a human banker, and he says, hey, guess what? There's actually still some elongated skull people around. This guy is a banker from Spain, as Brien Foerster points out. And he's a living elongated skull living amongst us. So now, during my research for all this, it took me a while before I was able to find that god Khan, the Peruvian god. But before I could do that, I was doing a little bit of research, and it helped throw a little bit of more of evidence connecting Genghis Khan with Peru. Now, this isn't necessarily with the elongated skull peoples, but this is connected with Peru after that fact. So we've already shown 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, Caspian Sea, elongated skull peoples migrate to Peru. They're there for about 1,000 years. They get massacred about 2,000 years ago. Okay. So I did research on Khan and trying to find connections with the Genghis Khan and Peru, and I found this book. It's a book from 1850, I believe, is the year that it was. I'm going to throw up a quick look at the title of the book. It's called Observations on the History of the Incas of Peru on the Indians of South Peru. Okay, and in particular, this one section of the book, get this. It says, Mr. Ranking, some years since, gave as his opinion the Asiatic origin of the Peruvians in the 13th century, and that Manco Capac, this is one of the founding gods of the Inca, was the grandson of Genghis Khan, and that the term Inca came from the Mongol word Unglet. In Danish, Swedish, and Chinese history are found the names of kings such as Ingar, Ingo, Ingwar, Ingel, Ingsing, and Ingwang, which appear to have about as much value as to the derivation of Inca as the Mongol word Unglet. So what this book is saying is that the Inca's founding father was a grandson of Genghis Khan, and the Inca are the Peruvian Indians. So at that point, I'm saying, wow, this is really interesting because it shows that we had the elongated skull people coming to Peru 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, and then after the Mongol Empire, 1,100 years later, we had the Mongol Empire exploding under my hypothesis, led by an elongated skull guy by the name of Genghis Khan, and his grandson goes to Peru and is one of the founding gods or fathers of Peru under the name of Manco Capac. Wow, that's just very, and that's where we get to Tartary. Okay, because Tartary was supposedly this secret hidden empire that we're exploring under this thesis. Genghis Khan's sons and grandsons expanded it even further, and it was expanded out into Europe. Into parts of Europe, under my hypothesis. And under my hypothesis, I think they married into the royalty of. I know that they married into the royalty of Europe, in particular of Russia as well. That's no question. I've already stated that before. The early royalty of Russia and the czars of Russia were intermarried with Genghis Khan's descendants. But we also have this in North America as well. I've shown maps of North America that show that this Tartary Empire, before the Europeans came to North America, that the Mongols expanded into North America as well. Now, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But what I want to show is Manco Capac real quick. Let's see if, can I make this a little bigger so I can read it? It's just tough to read. There we go. I just want to give a little example of what Wikipedia says about Manco Capac, who under this hypothesis is a grandson of Genghis Khan. It said Manco Capac, also is known as Manco Inca, which is where the Incas get their name, and Iron Manco was, according to some historians, the first governor and founder of the Inca civilization in Cusco, possibly in the early 13th century, which again, Wikipedia makes no mention of Genghis Khan or any descent from Genghis Khan, but that early 13th century proposition that Wikipedia makes fits perfectly with him being a grandson of Genghis Khan. So it's more supporting evidence. It also says Manco Capac is also a main figure of Inca mythology, being the protagonist of the two best-known legends about the origin of the Inca, both of them connecting him to the foundation of Cusco. His main wife was his oldest sister, Mama Ukli, and also the mother of his son and successor, Sinchi Rakwa, or whatever. Even though his figure is mentioned in several chronicles, his actual existence remains uncertain. Now here in particular, just one other thing I wanted to point out. As you know, as you may know, Genghis Khan came from the Mongols, and the Mongols are nomads in Mongolia, and you know they spread out all over the place. But they lived a nomadic lifestyle, and it's very well known about Genghis Khan and his descendants. And sure enough, in Wikipedia it says Manco Capac and his family lived in a nomadic lifestyle. Again, strongly suggesting that this theory about Manco Capac, the founder of the Inca in Peru, South America, was descended from Genghis Khan. It shows that Genghis Khan not only created this huge Mongol Empire, it didn't fall. His sons spread it out into North America, into South America, into Europe, all over the world. Okay, you're beginning to understand why this is hidden. So now what I just want to show is the potential prevalence of elongated skulls into history and how it also can be hidden, okay? I just want to show right here, we have Queen Nefertiti. She's a more recent version of the Egyptian rulers. Look at that hat on her head, okay? That long type of hat not only can be argued is in that shape so that it'll fit over an elongated skull. It can also be used to hide an elongated skull if you don't want people to know. If ultimately people are starting to get peed at these rulers and hey, they're not even like us, let's get all the elongated skull people and wipe them out, like happened in Peru. It may be that they chose to hide themselves as well with hats. So I'm pointing that out with Queen Nefertiti because then what else do we have? Bishops, okay, the Vatican, they all wear those hats as well, suggesting that maybe some of them still have elongated skulls, or the founders of the Vatican when they first did this were elongated skulls, okay? But it's not just a bishop. Russian Orthodox, another hat that could be argued is used to hide an elongated skull. And not to pick on Christians, we have Muslims too. Could be doing that, all right? Now, here I'm going to take a look at this map was used by Brien Foerster in his video, and it shows all the locations for either elongated skulls or giants. Okay. excuse me, where you see all of those dots are locations for elongated skulls and or giants. Now, and what you see is also in North America. You see them all these dots in North America. Under our hypothesis here of Tartary and this spread of Genghis Khan, this wouldn't have necessarily been the first time. Under my hypothesis, and what I think appears to be true, that this has happened multiple times in Earth's history. That there has been this spread around the Earth and world culture. And I want to show one example of this. Again, if you take a look at this map that I have here along the left-hand side where it says, where you see a few dots in North America, and it says the Mound Builders. The Mound Builders was a civilization, it was also called the Mississippian civilization, existed in North America. Cahokia is one of the locations. As a matter of fact, the song that I'm working on, it's been written for a while. I'm just working on producing it. I talk about them. What is it? The Sacred Mound. Talk about that. I'll leave it at that. They talk about sacred mounds. But these Mississippians had mounds. They're called, on this map, they're called Mound Builders. They had sacred mounds that they created. And in my hypothesis, that is evidence again of Tartary and the expansion of Genghis Khan's empire, and his sons expanding it into North America. But it's happened before then too. And that's what I want to talk about as well. As I stated, this is multiple waves that have happened and crashed over time multiple times. That didn't happen just once. There's expansion, boom, everything goes. And then they expand again, and boom, it crashes. So that's what I'm going to take a look at. Now, I just want to make sure we understand. Genghis Khan, he's talked about 1100 BC. I think that's about the same time as these mound builders, maybe a little after that, maybe 12 or 1300 100 AD. Khan was 1100 AD. So I want to go back all the way to 3000 BC, around 2000, 3000 BC. I think it's going to say in this article, but I think off the top of my head, it's about 2400 BC. We have the Copper Age. There's been all these ages, the Copper Age, the Tin Age, etc. And a lot of the questions about how all these ages happen, in particular in Europe and the Middle East, where did all this come from? I know that some of it came from the tin, came from Cornwall. But with the Copper Age, they don't, it's been, where did the copper come from? And it's been a little bit of mystery. Well, under my hypothesis, these elongated skulls have done this before, had the worldwide empire all over the place, and we're going to look at indisputable geological evidence that there was a worldwide empire of, in essence, and at least a worldwide trade empire that existed. And we're going to take a look at it via this particular article. I'll throw now. There's a link down below, so you can read this if you want by yourself. We're going to go through major portions of this to make sure you understand how this interplays with everything that I'm going on with here. It is estimated. It says the great ancient copper mines of Michigan. This is in North America. See, under my hypothesis, the reason that we have all of these copper ages and tin ages is because there was this global empire and ability to trade among North America and Europe, and there was no discovery of North America. It's just more recent discovery. It's a rediscovery that 2,000, 3,000 years ago, they knew about North America and there was still trade with it. We're going to show that. The great ancient copper mines of Michigan. It is estimated that 500 million pounds of copper were mined in tens of thousands of pits in Isle Royale and the Kewaunee Peninsula of Michigan by ancient miners over a period of 1,000 years. Carbon dating of wood timbers in the pits of these mines is dated the mining to start about 2,450 BC and end abruptly at 1,200 BC. Officially, no one knows where the Michigan copper went. All the ancient copper culture tools that have been found could have been manufactured from just one of the large boulders. A placard in London's British Museum Bronze Age exhibit that says, from about 2500 BC, the use of copper, formerly limited to parts of southern Europe, suddenly swept through the rest of the continent. No one seems to know where the copper in Europe came from. Came from these mines in Michigan. And that's what we're going to prove. Now, I just also want to show one other thing. As you can see here, it states that it started in 2450 BC and ended abruptly around 1200 BC. Now, something happened to destroy this. It was going on for 1200 years, and then all of a sudden, it just stopped. Well, what coincides with that stop around 1200 BC? That's when the elongated skulls in Crimea left Crimea and traveled to Peru. And they appeared, under our hypothesis, they were leaving for some reason. They were leaving because something happened. Their culture collapsed. Maybe the people rebelled against them. But it's strange because all of a sudden, all this copper just stops. All of a sudden, abruptly, 1200 BC, and at the same time that we see these elongated skull people fleeing Crimea. It may be that they didn't just flee Crimea. Shit went down in North America too, and all over the world. Perhaps. Okay. It's a strange little coincidence of timing that the copper stopped around the same time that they were fleeing Crimea and going to Peru. We'll continue. Indian legends tell the mining was done by fair-haired marine men. Well, how do you get from North America to Europe and Middle East? By sea, marine men. Along with wooden tools and stone hammers, a walrus skin bag has been found. A huge copper boulder was found in the bottom of a deep pit raised up on solid oak timbers, still preserved in the anaerobic conditions for more than 3,000 years. Some habitation sites and garden beds have been found and studied. It is thought that most of the miners retired to Aslan, near Madison, Wisconsin, and other locations to the south at the onset of the hard winters on Lake Superior. The mining appears to have ended overnight, as though they had left for the day and never came back. Again, we're talking about that sudden, abrupt end that appears connected with also the elongated skull people leaving Crimea. During this 1,000-year period of mining, some of the miners must have explored the continent to the west, as evidenced by strangely large skeletons in lots of places, such as the red-haired giants who came by boat to Love Lake Cave on Lake Lohontan, North Nevada, that were found in 1924 with fishnets and duck decoys. Now, so here we have evidence of red-haired giants. These red-haired giants have been found all over North America. I've done a video in that regard. The video is called Six-Fingered Giants and the Sexagesimal System. Now, red-haired giants aren't just found in North America. According to histories, when the Europeans went to Easter Island, which is about 1,000 or 2,000 miles off the coast of Peru in the Pacific. On Easter Island, you may be familiar with the Easter Island heads. They found people living there, yeah, but they stated, my understanding and my memory, if my memory correct, is the leaders were giants. There's also reports that when the Europeans landed in North America there were Indians normal Indians, but the Indians, all the chiefs, were big, tall, red-haired giants. Suggests to me that this was a spread from Mongolia, Genghis Khan's descendants, spreading out, and that Genghis Khan was a red-haired giant, perhaps with an elongated skull as well. Now, I want to make also the distinction that with all mating and such, there would be different derivations. Maybe the red-haired giants had normal skulls, but there was another offshoot that had elongated skulls. I think that the elongated skulls are like the older versions, and as they mate, the skull becomes normal. There'd be different derivations. Not every red-haired giant has an elongated skull, and not all elongated skulls are giants. As a matter of fact, elongated skulls may not be giants. I think there's diversity among this, but I think the evidence is so overwhelming that you have to look at it, especially with this pattern of the red hair as well. Red-haired giants and red-haired elongated skulls. There's a connection there. It may not be the same, but I think they all derive from the same ancestry. So here it also continues. Jenkins, a historian from Glastonbury, writes, I met the farmer who owns land on which a megalithic stone circle is called Merry Maidens in far west Cornwall. I believe Cornwall is where the tin came from. Clearing hedges, just an aside, while clearing hedges, he discovered an arrowhead which was sent to the British Museum for identification. The answer? The arrowhead in Cornwall, which is part of the United Kingdom, England, is 5,000 years old. Source, Michigan, USA. Okay? Long before Columbus, there was trade with North America. Now, just a quick aside, in this particular website, there was some comments down below, and I read through the comments, and I just want to show this one comment because I found this very interesting as well. This woman claims to be descended from Indians in Michigan, and here's what she says. My people, the Anishinaabe, have an old story about a war between the miners that were red-haired fighting a black-headed people over the mining here in Upper Michigan and Isle Royale. The red-haired people prevailed. These weren't giants, but we do know our people came originally from the Atlantic. I don't mean we just used to live near the Atlantic, but that we came across it for the mining in the old days. But we also have stories of giants, and the real stories were always cruel. There's a lot of stories about the cruelty of these giants as well, and ultimately they were wiped out. So, again, much of history that we are taught is deceptive, and we're starting to uncover it. It's not, in my opinion, this huge fake. It's the truth, but with not the whole truth being told, is the way I perceive it. You can see that this happened, but they're not telling you the whole truth. So, we know there was a copper age, but they're not telling you where the copper came from, really. And, I'll stop it there. I don't want to go too long into this. I think that's all the graphics I have as well. So thanks for watching. It's been quite the fascinating past few days of research and discovery and synchronicity, and I want to take you through it and give you the big picture on everything that I've found, and I hope you'd enjoyed it. So this is another one of my Tartary videos. I hope to do a lot more videos. I keep on saying this. I hope my next video is my new song that I'm very excited about producing. I'm going to try to devote all of my time towards that, as I've stated before, but these videos to do just keep on popping up, and I gotta do them. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Got a PayPal down below if you want to help me out. Thanks.